I'm Paul Gigot. Record deficits, near double-digit unemployment, and a roller coaster ride on Wall Street. If you think things have been bad lately, my guest this week says they could get worse next year. Economist Art Laffer says the threat of a double-dip recession is very real. He joins me now from Nashville. Arthur Laffer, welcome back. Good to have you back on the program. You know,
thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure.
You're typically an optimist.
Yes, I am.
So why the doom and gloom now?
Well, President Obama had, when he took office, did not repeal Bush's tax cuts, but let them expire, which means that on January 1st, 2011, Paul, you're going to get very major tax rate increases in personal income, capital gains, dividends, estate taxes, offshore investing, alternative minimum tax, Cadillac plans, I could go on. And if people know tax rates are going up next year, what they will do is they will shift income into this year, obviously, to take advantage of lower tax rates now. And if they do that, that will make this year look a lot better than it otherwise should, right, and make next year look a lot worse. And we did the same mistake, only in reverse in 1981. We deferred tax cuts, and we caused, I think, the recession of 81, 82. And then we had the huge boom in 83, 84 when the tax cuts took effect. And I think Obama's going to get the mirror image of this, and unfortunately, I think we're going to have a setback in 2011.
But if you look at the underlying economy, the fundamentals, you've got a healthier housing market than you had a year ago. You have a much healthier financial system than you had a year ago. You've got some private sector job growth finally, and corporate profits have been really quite good. I mean, that means we have some forward momentum. And you're saying that just the tax increase alone has the potential to derail all that momentum.
I think the forward momentum, Paul, if I may, is in part due to the tax increase on January 1st, 2011. It's illusory. And, people are moving income into 2010 and spending into 2010 because they're afraid of 2011 and beyond. And they should be. I mean, this administration and this Congress, and no slur intended, are doing an awful job on the economy. And you can't have a prosperous economy when the government's way overspending, raising tax rates, printing too much money, over-regulating and restricting free trade. It just can't be done.
But here's what the Democrats would say, Art. They would say that, look, the tax rates are going up, okay, but they're only going back up to what they were in the 1990s. And the 1990s actually were a very, very prosperous time after 1994 when you had the change in Congress. So why are this tax increase this time going to be so much more damaging?
In the 1990s, we had the largest cut in government spending as a share of GDP in the history of the U.S. In the 1990s, we were doing free trade. We passed NAFTA. We went through there. We were lowering interest rates and controlling money far better, and we weren't regulating nearly as much. We had welfare reform. We had all of those wonderful things. We had the biggest capital gains tax cut in our nation's history. Any comparison between today and the 1990s is totally inappropriate. Bill Clinton, as bad a person as he was a good president. And this one's a good person, but a bad president, and I'd rather have a good president than a bad one.
Well, a couple of days after you wrote your piece, Bob Dahl, the legendary investor for BlackRock, wrote on our pages that he said, look, the United States is actually going to do very well. He made the bullish case for equities, and one of the arguments he made was, look around the world. We're in much better shape in the United States than Europe, for example. We're in much better shape than Japan. And even the emerging economies, China, India, we were doing well. They aren't as big enough part of the global economy to really become a place where a lot of capital wants to go. So the U.S. stocks are going to do quite well. What's wrong with that argument?
Well, I hope he's right. I mean, to be really honest with you, I do hope he's right. But I do think he's using hope as a strategy, and I don't think it's a good one. And I really do that. But the current numbers are fine. That's what you'd expect when people are accelerating income to the present. Just before they eliminated the Cash for Clunkers program, auto sales looked great. And the same thing with the housing starts, when they still had the $8,000 tax credit. I hope he is right, and I hope I'm missing something serious. And I frequently do, as you know, Paul. Well, but I don't try to. And this... Sorry.
Yeah, on that point, I just wanted to ask you about a piece you wrote a year ago on our pages, almost a year ago to the day, about inflation. You were worried that we'd see a real rebound in inflation because of the ease that the Federal Reserve monetary policy, and yet we haven't seen any so far. Is that around the corner too, or was that one of those cases where you were wrong?
Well, I may have been wrong. I hope I was in that one too. Yes, we do. Well, at least I do. But I don't think so. I think the inflation prospects for the U.S. over the next 5 or 6, 7 years are quite serious. You cannot have a bumper crop in apples without the value or the price of each apple falling. The Fed has had the largest increase in the monetary base in the history of the U.S. From colonial times to the present, times 10. You're going to get a decline in the value of the U.S. dollar. And unfortunately, it's not happened yet, but you know, I just don't think anyone should take the inflation threat lightly. And I look at it in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's not over the weekend.
So is the most important thing we could do now from a policy point of view is just, briefly, we don't have a lot of time, but just basically keep the current tax rates? Don't let that tax increase hit?
In the short run, don't let them go up, and let the Fed sell bonds to bring bank reserves back down to required reserves levels so we have restraint on bank lending and bank issuances of liabilities. Yes, that's what we should do.
All right, Laffer. I wish they were going to take your advice. I'm afraid I don't think they're going